Let's talk about German cars. Those sleek machines that make even a trip to Tesco feel cinematic. From the roar of the engine to the luxurious interiors, these cars are the epitome of engineering excellence and style. But now, the world of automotive excellence has crashed into a political wall. President Trump has slapped a 25% tariff on imported cars. This move has sent shockwaves through the global automotive industry. Germany's car giants like Porsche and Volkswagen responded by halting new shipments to the US, a dramatic slow-motion door slam for one of the world's biggest trade routes. The ripple effects are being felt far and wide. Shiny new Audis and BMWs now sit idle in German ports, gathering dust instead of turning heads on American roads. While American showrooms face empty lots, dealerships are struggling to fill their spaces, and customers are left with fewer choices and higher prices. This isn't just a spat over import duties, it's an economic standoff with real consequences for workers, companies, and anyone dreaming of a car that doesn't rattle. Auto factory workers are facing layoffs, and business executives are scrambling to find solutions. Buckle up, this tariff tantrum is about to get bumpy. The road ahead is uncertain, and the stakes are higher than ever. Will cooler heads prevail, or are we in for a full-blown hurricane? Tariffs, basically taxes on imported goods, are meant to make foreign products pricier, nudging people to buy local. Trump's 25% car tariff is his answer to what he calls an unfair trade imbalance with Europe, claiming it'll bring jobs and billions to the US, but the global economy isn't monopoly. It's a tangled web, and tariffs are sledgehammers, not scalpels. The extra cost gets passed down to dealerships and ultimately American consumers. Instead of protecting industry, the move detonated a grenade in the middle of it. Trump sees German cars on US roads as defeat, not choice. So he's rewriting the rules. The catch? The other players can just walk away. And that's exactly what Germany did. When the US government suddenly slapped a 25% tariff on imported cars, German automakers faced a stark choice: absorb the massive cost and risk losing money on every vehicle, or take a stand. In a move that stunned the industry, they chose the latter, halting shipments of new cars to the United States almost overnight. Showrooms that once gleamed with the latest German engineering quickly emptied out, and the flow of vehicles at American ports ground to a halt. It was a bold, calculated response to an unexpected economic punch. For giants like Porsche and Volkswagen, the American market isn't just important, it's essential. The US is one of their largest and most profitable destinations, with millions of loyal customers. But by pausing exports, these companies hoped to avoid even greater financial losses that would come from trying to compete with a 25% price disadvantage. It was a high-stakes gamble, but one that signaled they wouldn't be pushed around. In 2024 alone, the United States imported nearly $25 billion worth of German cars. For Porsche, every single sale in America is an import. And for Volkswagen, the US represents a crucial share of their global business. These aren't just numbers. They're the lifeblood of German automotive success. And the sudden halt sent ripples through both economies. The self-imposed embargo didn't just hurt the company's bottom lines. It sent shockwaves through the workforce, threatening thousands of jobs in German factories and leaving American dealerships scrambling for inventory. News outlets buzzed with talk of layoffs, economic slowdowns, and the growing uncertainty on both sides of the Atlantic. Even American workers at German-owned plants, those who build, ship, and sell these cars on US soil, felt the pressure. The ripple effect was immediate, with assembly lines slowing and employees wondering if their jobs would be next on the chopping block. President Trump had expected Germany to cave under the pressure, betting that their reliance on the US market would force them to accept the new tariffs. But instead, German automakers called his bluff. American showrooms stood empty, customers faced long waits, and the administration's strategy was suddenly under scrutiny. The Germans' refusal to be bullied exposed a critical flaw in Trump's plan. It only works if the other side can't afford to walk away. By shutting off the supply, German executives showed they were willing to endure short-term pain for long-term leverage, forcing American negotiators back to the table. Now, both sides are locked in a tense, high-stakes standoff. Billions of dollars, thousands of jobs, and the future of transatlantic trade hang in the balance. Neither side wants to blink first, and the world is watching every move. International media outlets are covering the story around the clock, analyzing every statement and negotiation. Ordinary people in both countries are glued to the news, wondering how the standoff will end and what it means for their livelihoods. Meanwhile, thousands of German cars sit idle at ports and storage lots, gathering dust. The world waits to see who will make the first move, and whether these cars will ever make it to American roads again. The tariff announcement sent financial markets into a tailspin. Porsche, Mercedes, BMW, and Volkswagen stocks all plunged. Billions of euros vanished from company valuations in hours, and the DAX index slumped. Analysts warned the tariffs could wipe out a quarter of Porsche and Mercedes' 2026 profits. CEOs faced nightmares, and companies scrambled to rethink global strategies. The market's reaction proved this wasn't just political theater. These were real, immediate consequences. Investors lost confidence, betting on a less profitable future for German automakers. In a globalized world, a speech in Washington can trigger panic in Frankfurt. The tariff wasn't just a tax on cars, it was a tax on certainty. For Americans like Brenda, the 25% tariff means one thing: cars just got a lot more expensive. That $40,000 Volkswagen? Now it's $50,000, out of reach for many families. Imported cars become luxury items, and the pain ripples through the market. Used car prices surge as buyers scramble for alternatives, and even repairs get pricier as demand for parts rises. The policy squeezes the very consumers it claims to help, making new cars a privilege and old ones more costly to maintain. Choice shrinks, costs climb, and the American car dream slips further away. The unintended consequences are real, and they hit Main Street hardest. For Brenda and millions more, the car hunt just got tougher. With billions at stake, politicians stepped in. German Chancellor Merz flew to Washington to negotiate with Trump. Merz proposed an offset rule: for every American car entering the EU tariff-free, one European car enters the US the same way. It's a simple, tit-for-tat compromise that could de-escalate the conflict and let both sides claim victory. The talks didn't collapse, and special representatives were appointed to keep negotiating. But any deal needs EU-wide approval, a famously tricky feat. For now, tense haggling continues behind closed doors, with the fate of the car market hanging in the balance. The offset rule offers hope, but the road to a deal is long and full of political potholes. Meanwhile, the cars wait, and so do consumers. Industry leaders and trade experts blasted the tariffs as reckless and self-defeating. Hildegard Muller of the VDA called them a disaster for free trade, warning of higher prices and broken supply chains. Dirk Jandura urged the EU to retaliate, highlighting the risk of a tit-for-tat trade war. Experts pointed out that many German cars are built by American workers. BMW's South Carolina plant is the largest U.S. car exporter by value. The tariffs threaten the very industry they claim to protect, based on an outdated view of global manufacturing. The consensus: in a globalized world, trade wars have no winners, just losers on all sides. The experts' warning is clear: this storm could hit everyone. This isn't just about cars, though that's what grabs the headlines and sparks heated debates on both sides of the Atlantic. When you look closer, you see that the real story is much bigger, touching on the very foundations of how nations interact, compete, and cooperate in a globalized world. It's about clashing visions of global trade and the values that underpin them. Every handshake, every deal, every policy decision is shaped by these competing philosophies. The US-EU trade imbalance is stark. Billions of dollars worth of goods flow across the ocean, but the scales tip heavily in Europe's favor when it comes to cars. Europe exports far more cars to America than vice versa, filling American roads with German engineering and Italian design, while American automakers struggle to gain a foothold overseas. For President Trump, this imbalance is more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. He sees it as proof the system is rigged against American workers and businesses, fueling his calls for tough action. That's why he's turned to tariffs, taxes on imported cars and parts, as a way to level the playing field and force trading partners to the negotiating table. But economists caution that trade imbalances aren't always a sign of unfairness. They can reflect consumer preferences. Americans love European cars, shifting exchange rates, and the global strategies of multinational companies, where companies choose to build their factories, hire workers, and source parts can have just as much impact as tariffs or trade deals. European leaders push back, arguing their tariffs on American cars aren't wildly different from US tariffs on other goods, and that the rules are more balanced than they seem. The real conflict, though, is between two worldviews, one that sees trade as a zero-sum competition, and another that sees it as a path to mutual benefit and cooperation. It's a debate that goes far beyond the auto industry, shaping how countries approach everything from agriculture to technology. The German car tariff is just the latest battleground in a much bigger ideological war, one that will influence jobs, industries, and economies for years to come. The outcome will shape more than just car prices for families shopping at their local dealership. It could redefine the rules of global trade and set the tone for international relations in the 21st century. So where are we now? German cars aren't coming, tariffs are in place, and politicians are still negotiating. Best case, a compromise like the offset rule restores trade and lowers tariffs. Worst case, talks collapse, tariffs stick, and both sides escalate, hurting jobs, choices, and economies. For consumers, uncertainty means higher prices and fewer options, new or used. The simple act of buying a car is now tangled in global politics. This saga proves how interconnected and fragile our world really is. For now, car buyers should brace for impact. The road ahead is bumpy, and it's getting pricier.